Richard, it's so good to be with you today, and you've been telling me that you've been involved in weather for 14 years.
It's been a long time.
Wow, and whatever possessed you to get involved with doing the weather?
You know, it actually had to do with the fact that I grew up in Colorado. I mean, I was just a young man, 12 years old probably, when I saw my first tornado in eastern Colorado with my father. The rest of the family went down into the storm shelter, and he and I went outside to look at it. It was really actually a big tornado, and it caused some damage through a mobile home park where it had struck. And I remember being impressed with the magnitude of the damage and the fact that this was merely just wind that had caused this. So I was impressed by that. And just growing up in Colorado, we see all kinds of weather. I remember our house was at the low spot in the block, and so our basement would frequently flood with the runoff from everybody else's backyard. And so my job, while the rest of the family was downstairs with the wet, dry vacuums, was to run around the outside of the house while it was raining, oftentimes, with a bucket, and I would bail out the window wells. Well, when you're that young, you have a pretty healthy fantasy life, and I would think of myself as bailing out a ship rather than bailing window wells. So I discovered late in life that I was doing a live shot in the snow in Mississippi, and a reporter I was with was complaining about how cold it was and the fact that it was snowing and everything else. And I realized that I was having a good time. And I went immediately back to my youth. I enjoyed the weather because I was in the weather. In Colorado, weather is so wacky that we just see hail and rain and tornadoes and everything. So that's what got me into it.
Wow. And you mentioned that the weather is so wacky, because I remember you've been telling me that it can be very beautiful in Colorado, and it can also be very dangerous.
It is. You know, most of the nation, actually, the primary weather threat is flash flooding. On average, annually, more people die because of flash flooding, usually because they're driving through it. In Colorado, that's not the case. Our number one weather killer is lightning, and people just don't seem to have an appreciation for that. And the reality is, and it's a pretty harsh one, that if you're close enough to hear the thunder, you're close enough to be struck by lightning. So when you think of it that way, you have to think back, well, how many times have you been out in a thunderstorm when there's thunder and lightning outside and you just blow it off and dismiss it? So we've come up with some safety rules in order to keep people safe. And this is part of what I talk about in my presentation, specifically with school kids, but also civic organizations and adult groups too, just to dispel some of the old wives' tales, is that one of the safety tips that we have is called the 30-30 rule. And when you see a bolt of lightning or lightning flash and you start to count 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5, and then you hear a rumble of thunder, well then you know, just based on how fast sound travels, that lightning flash was 1 mile away. So the math becomes pretty simple. So 10 seconds equals 2 miles, 15 seconds equals 3 miles. And if you can count to 30 or less, then you're in the danger zone of being struck by lightning. And you have to wait 30 minutes from the last rumble of thunder before you know that you are in a good, safe spot as much as you can be, given the circumstances. So that's what I like to address with school kids and adult groups during my weather presentations, just to let them know some of these little things that we grow up with. We sort of know it, but we just need somebody to tell us.
But, you know, when you first told me about that, what you just shared with us, that was a complete surprise to me. I always felt that when I heard the thunder outside, that it was far away. I always had that impression my whole life until you shared this with me just a few months ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember you telling me about a story when you and your family were up in the mountains, and with the lightning and what happened there. Would you tell us about that too?
Yeah, and to be quite honest about it, it's probably the scariest moment of my adult life. We were hiking, and most thunderstorms in Colorado's high country start producing lightning before 12 noon. So it's important that you get up there and get down before noon. Well, we were up there, it was around noonish, we were having lunch, and within 15 minutes a thunderstorm bubbled up. And by the time it started to produce lightning, we were right in the thick of it. And from flash to thunder was instant, and it was all the way around. So we put all of our little lightning safety tips into effect immediately. We're crouching down, we're covering our ears, we're tucking our faces, we're spread out. We didn't want to be one big target. And as we moved down the mountain through the trail, we kind of stayed spread out, but it was instant. I mean, lightning, thunder, the whole time. It was raining, it was hailing, the lightning was flashing, it was very dangerous. And it took us about 30 minutes to get all the way down to the car. And we were about 3 miles away initially. So we got into the car, or we got to the car rather, And the thunderstorm at this point had moved on. It wasn't raining, it wasn't hailing. The lightning very obviously was far away. But that's where the 30-30 rule comes into play. You have to wait 30 minutes. And we were throwing backpacks into the back of the car, and my daughter's hair went straight up. And that's one of the main indications that you are about ready to be struck by lightning, and you literally have seconds. So you have to act now. Car is a good place to go when you're in that area. You need to seek shelter. A hard-roofed car with the windows up is the safest place you can be in that context.
And I remember, my convertible is not what you're describing.
Oh, it's true. Absolutely. A lot of people tell me, what's the rubber on the tires? Well, no, it has nothing to do with the rubber on the tires. And a convertible is not a hard top. It's not a metal cage.
Yes.
So that's not a safe place to be. It's true.
Great. Well, in case anybody wants to reach you to ask you more questions, how would they do that, Richard?
I would say there's probably two ways to do that. One, I do have a webpage. It's myspace.com/Colorado Weatherman. You can go there and check out some of my bookings and things. You can also reach me via email, which is coloradoweatherwise@gmail.com, and wise is a question. WHYS, not WISE. So coloradoweatherwise@gmail.com. That's a good one.
And your phone number?
303-832-0206. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Great to be with you.